Meet David Maurice Robinson then, 20 inches of cute little guy. Meet David Maurice Robinson now, 85 inches of power and skill, burning up the court for the San Antonio Spurs and America's Olympic Dream Team. Is this guy one of those egotistical athletes with major muscles, a minor brain, and no values? No way. David's SAT scores totaling 1,320 got him into the Naval Academy, where he majored in math and made waves on the basketball team. After graduation and a couple of years as an officer, it was time for professional ball. In 1989, the man they call the Admiral made his NBA debut. It wasn't long before he was named the league's most valuable player. And it wasn't long ago that he signed a new contract for $66 million. David says he let celebrity go to his head for a brief time, but he quickly got his size 16 feet back on the ground, and now he lives his values. He puts in long hours at the gym and in the weight room, practices to sharpen his playing skills, and thinks endlessly about ways he can lead his team effectively. He's committed to his wife Valerie and their kids, and he works at being a good father. He even put in an appearance on Sesame Street.
I love this game.
And dinner plans. I had dinner plans too.
52, 53, 54, 55, 56, 57.
He set up a foundation to help kids and families, and he contributes 10% of his earnings. But he also contributes his time at charity events and in TV spots aimed at young people.
But you know one thing David's never done?
Drugs.
David doesn't do drugs. Maybe that's why he's done so much.
People around the world look up to him, and national magazines and TV shows clamor for just a few minutes of his time. But you're about to spend an hour with David Robinson. He'll tell you, frankly and openly, how he handles the pressures of his own life. He'll let you in on his mistakes as well as his triumphs. And he'll give you first-rate advice about the issues you face every day. You could call this next hour How David Robinson Plays the Game of Life, and you've got a front row seat.
Well, if I had to talk to someone who didn't know me as a player or as a man, I would probably tell them that David Robinson is a man who is a man first, and a husband first, and a father first, and then just happens to be a pretty good basketball player. You know, I think a lot of people don't understand that. Even now, when they see me, they always say, well, you know, here's a guy, he's a basketball player, he should think like every other basketball player, but I don't think like every other basketball player, and if I had to describe myself to someone, I'd say, well, I just happen to be a good basketball player, and my goal is to be the best basketball player I can be. I've made a few mistakes in my life, and it's funny because living the way that I live, I think mistakes are probably the most important part of my growth. There's been so many different things. I think coming into this league as an NBA player, you think that everything's going to be so wonderful. You make a lot of money. You have a lot of time. You all of a sudden have a lot of people telling you how great you are. And it's not like that at all. I mean, you have to adjust as a person. And I know for myself, I kind of got caught up in the whole game, and I thought a lot more of myself than I probably should have thought of myself. And that's a common trap of fame and fortune. And I had to learn to deal with that and figure out, hey, was I going to be this jerk, which, you know, who everything centers around me, or was I going to be a man, a neighbor, a husband. You know, what kind of wife did I want? Did I want a slave as a wife, or do I want a partner as a wife? And those were decisions I had to make. A lot of people do think that the main point of their lives is to be happy. But I don't necessarily think that that's the case. I think that our lives here are so short. I mean, some shorter than others. But I think that we're here for a reason. You know, God put us here for a reason, and He made us each different, gave us different talents and abilities, and so I think there's a purpose, and you have to understand that with the gifts that you've been given comes responsibilities. And I definitely believe that it's not always to be happy, because I've seen people or read stories of people who have accomplished great things but lived seemingly miserable lives, been in prison or died young or been born during a wartime situation, and it wasn't necessarily fun. They weren't necessarily happy during their lives, but they accomplished so much and made a difference in so many people's lives. When you understand that your life is so much more than just about, whether you're happy with the kind of house you live in or whether you're happy with the kind of car you drive, that is going to impact you more than anything else. And so I think that that's what it's about. It's really about fulfilling who you are, really reaching out to your fullest potential and making a difference. When you make a difference in the world, that lasts way longer than you do. And if you just live and serve yourself, when you die, most people really won't care that you're gone. And I think that you have a responsibility, and you have to reach for that.
What do you get when you put a dozen teenagers in a room and ask them tough questions? You get good answers. We wanted to know, and we wanted David Robinson to know, what's on the minds of high school students. So we convened 2 focus groups, one in the East and one in the West. Participants were carefully selected to reflect the general population of 14 to 19-year-olds. A professional facilitator moderated the focus groups as video cameras rolled. We listened as the young men and women talked about what's important in their lives, and then we showed the tapes to David Robinson and asked him to address the same issues. The first subject was love.
In my life, I think that I'd love my mom and my dad and my sister and, my pets.
Well, when I know someone loves me, I feel like I'm worth something.
Okay. What do you mean by that? What do you mean I'm worth something?
Well, that at least I know somebody cares about me.
People that love me are like people that I've been with like all my life.
Okay.
They've helped raise me and stuff.
Love and discipline is what binds you together, and the discipline they do is because they care for you and they want to protect you and stuff.
Yeah, it's loving you enough to make sure you are directed to the right stuff and making the right decisions, and they're helping us.
How is love different than sex?
Love is like a long-term thing, and sex is like a short-term thing.
Like my cousin, she's only a year older than me, she's already had a kid. And my other cousin just now got pregnant. And then friends, they all have condoms in their pocket and go around showing them off and stuff.
How do you feel about that?
I just think they're all sick and weird and stuff, going around showing people this,
honestly, this year was just you're all having sex. It's just, I don't know, it gets overwhelming sometimes.
I think they're ready to have sex whenever they're able to take the consequences and stuff. Whenever they have a secure job and everything and can support a child if that happens.
You need some time to grow up before you can actually have the responsibility of taking care of a child.
How about if one of the guys on your basketball team fathered a child and didn't take responsibility? How would you feel about him as a teammate?
As a teammate?
Yeah.
As a teammate, I really can't feel anything about him, but as a friend, I would encourage him to take care of his child, but if he didn't, what can I do?
Okay. What would you do?
What would I do?
Yeah. What would you say to him?
I tell him to take care of his child.
Why?
Because
he's young, he's having a good time, he's got to play ball, right?
Because when you grow up without a father, it's harder on the child.
I don't want to get married. I mean, it's fun and everything for everybody else, but for me it just wouldn't work out because that's just the type of person I am. I get sick of, the same thing over and over.
I'm kind of a Renaissance woman. I do everything. I don't know. I don't know what I want to do yet. I might just end up doing 4 or 5 things, and I don't know if my husband's going to be able to deal with that.
What if you find a Renaissance man to share your life with?
That would be really interesting.
When you look at people in your life and you see people in your lives that love you, you know why you know your parents love you is because they've been faithful to you from the day one. I mean, you didn't know how to love anybody, but you realized every day that they brought home the food, they changed your diaper, they took care of you day in and day out, and and every time you cried, they brought the bottle, and every time you needed something, they got it for you. And yeah, sure, there were times when they said no, but they took care of you, and that's the reason why you grew up to where you are. And And you can say that even about some of the meanest parents that have ever been around. They took care of the needs of their children. And you may not have liked a whole lot of things that your parents did, but they were faithful. And that is a big part of what love is. And in understanding that, when you begin to understand that, then your relationships really start to flower. I mean, your relationship with your friends starts to flower because you understand that loving your friends is not about feeling good about them all the time. Loving your friends is about being a friend and being there for them and giving yourself to them. And when you don't like a friend that you can't tell something personal to. You like a friend that is there for you all the time. And good or bad, they stick with you and they cheer for you and they give themselves to you. One of the most incredible times of my life was when my little son first looked at me and he said, "Daddy, I love you." It was so awesome because he didn't know what love was about. He didn't know anything. And the reason he said that was because I was there for him. And at 3 o'clock in the morning when I got home from a game and I didn't feel like sitting up and rocking him to sleep, I rocked him to sleep. Go to sleep. And so he learned that I loved him because I was there for him. And that was that was a time that almost changed my whole life because I realized, he learned to love because I first loved him. Sex is something that is a really special gift that God has given us to relate to one another in a marriage situation. And it's been abused really in our society because now when people are dating, the guy will say, "Hey, if you love me, then you'll sleep with me." But really, the girl could turn around and say, "If you really love me, then you'd honor me enough to know, that's not the right thing to do for me. I need to honor God first, and then you. So if this is not what He wants me to do, then I'm not going to do it." And so there's a big difference. There's a huge difference between love and sex. Sex is a gift that's supposed to be used in the framework of marriage. When you take it out of its context, it's a very dangerous thing. All of a sudden you have venereal diseases. All of a sudden you have children that nobody wants to claim. You have these illegitimate children. You have paternity suits. You have all kinds of things that are going on back and forth that are shouldn't be here. We shouldn't have these problems. You shouldn't have, this AIDS problem. You shouldn't have, syphilis and gonorrhea, all this type of stuff. I mean, it's all this stuff kind of comes because we've abused something that's a very special gift, and it's a wonderful gift, but it's taken out of context. When kids talk about having children out of wedlock, it really hurts me because I think they have no understanding, no clue at all about the responsibility that goes along with those kids. Children are a huge responsibility, and you don't really love that child if you're not giving him the best opportunity to be successful and to grow up and be a strong man or a woman of their own right. And you can't do that at 15 years old. You just can't do that. You can't do that if you're not in a stable situation where that child can really enjoy mommy and daddy and wake up and have the security of a home. You just can't do that. And so you might think that you love that child, but it's sort of like the husband who says to his wife he loves her, but he's out in the streets all the time. Well, big deal, you say you love me. You don't do anything to prove it to me. And it's the same way you're doing with this child. You might say you love this child, but you're not proving it to this child by the way you act. You're not giving this child what it's fair for this child. The child has someone who fathered him, so why not have a father? I mean, it's just not fair to that child. It's not fair, to you. And when you put your parents in a situation where the grandparents have to take care of the children, it's not fair to them. So, all of a sudden, all those people you were saying that you loved, you're putting them in awkward situations, and all of a sudden you're doing things that don't say that you love them.
I felt hated because one time I went to the mall with some of my friends, and they were black. I was with two black friends, and there was a Mexican guy there, and there's a cop there, and he goes, "You guys are gonna have to leave," because he said that we were causing trouble and we were just walking through the mall looking for stuff. And I was like, that's not right, because there was like other people that were white and they were just walking around like nothing happened.
Why did someone hate you?
Because they just don't like me. of my Mexican background.
Okay.
Because I don't know why, because they have a bad reputation or something. I don't know.
Did they call you names?
Of course.
Okay, and how'd that make you feel?
Disliked.
How'd you react to that?
I had a temper.
Did you hate them back?
Of course.
So I understand how he's feeling, because, like...
You've experienced something
Yeah.
like Okay.
So, I just, like, I'd get hate for them, too. If they hate me, I hate them back.
They would call me stupid names and stuff. And I've had a run-in with some gangs, you know, like the KKK. They're just plain evil.
But aren't they just, you know, making jokes and having fun?
No.
No. Okay, tell me.
They don't just make jokes. They go further than that.
Okay. And how does that make you feel as a person?
It doesn't make me feel like a person. Sometimes it makes you feel like an animal, like you're being hunted.
I've seen some of that kind of hatred and that kind of injustice, really, you know, and it every time it just gives you a sick feeling to your stomach, because you know it's real, you know it's out there. You know, you're not going to be able to get away from it. You know, whether you like it or not, there's going to be KKK rallies if they're in the backwoods of somewhere in the Midwest, or, you know, or they might even be the streets of New York or whatever. But there's going to be people out there who have no concept of what love is. And you have to learn to deal with them. You know, the question is, how do you deal with hate? You know, you don't give it back. You know, because it's like a monster. You know, it's like feeding a monster. It just gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And you know, if somebody somebody beats you up, you know, you go and get a gun and you come back, and then he goes and gets his brothers, and then it becomes a whole neighborhood thing and a gang thing. You know, and where does it end? You know, and that's what I think about hate. You know, it should end with you. Well, when I have disagreements with people, you know, it's something I don't mind having disagreements with people, because everyone is different. I mean, even with me and my wife, we grew up in different parts of the country. We have different backgrounds. There's a lot of things we don't agree on, and there's nothing wrong with that. You can disagree and still like one another and still deal with one another and have everything go smoothly. You have to learn how to disagree. You know, when I go into conflict with someone, you know, I do as best I can to argue my point, and then when it comes down to it, somebody has to make a decision. And if I'm the leader, I'm making the decision, you know, and that's the bottom line. But if somebody else is the leader, then you have to abide by how they decide it. When you feel like you're right and you really feel like you know, your way is the best way, it's hard to ever give any ground and say, you know, no, I can't, you know, I don't mind, I'll agree with you or whatever. It's hard to say that. You know, it's not easy in any situation, but you've also got to keep a picture of what's the best for the overall situation. And if you're on a basketball team, if you're on a baseball team or something like that, you got to realize you got to do what's best for that team, period.
What kind of parents have a son like David Robinson? Freda Robinson, a nurse, and Ambrose Robinson, a Navy career man, raised their children in a home where education was valued, discipline was strict, and love was abundant. Today, all three Robinson kids are success stories. Kimberly's earning her doctoral degree, Chuck is a Naval Academy graduate studying for the ministry, and David, well, you know about David. Freda and Ambrose Robinson run the Robinson Group, a San Antonio-based organization that manages marketing, business development, personal appearances, and more for David and some of his teammates. Together, David's parents have written a book, How to Raise an MVP. Only in this title, MVP means Most Valuable Person.
And see, I taught my children the thin line between love and hate. I taught them, I pulled no punches, even though I protected them. I told them, I said, it's out there. I said, but you have to overcome it. Don't let that weight you down. Don't let that cripple you, make you think you can't do it. I said, let that make you work harder. Let that work as a motivation area more so than a burden.
If you get an education, nobody can take that away, and that's what she's alluding to. Nobody can take it away, and once you move on, you can be President of the United States, if that's your desire, if that's your goal, you can do anything you want to do. So the hate aspect is gone in that sense.
I can remember lots of mistakes that I made, and I'm glad I made them. I'm glad I made them because I learned from those mistakes. And this way, I won't make as many mistakes with my grandchildren. So it helped me. It helped me is that you don't learn unless you make mistakes.
It's like Thomas Edison said, he found 10,000 ways that a light bulb wouldn't work. And he learned at least that there were 10,000 ways it wouldn't work before he got the one to work.
David learning leadership was more or less probably attributed to his father. I think you learn leadership by example and by someone you look up to, or it kind of stems back to a child learning their environment. And his daddy was kind of in authority. He was the authority figure at our home. He was the real father figure at our home, did a lot of things with them. And I don't care what you say, children look at what you do.
I think the majority of the leadership skills that I passed on to my kids emulated from the fact that I was in the Navy for all of those years. And I expected people, when I told them to do something, to do it. And if they didn't do it, then they would suffer the consequences for that, whatever those consequences may have been. And the thing that I think I taught my children was to accept the responsibility for your actions.
Tell me, who do you consider to be a leader?
Doctors.
Parents, doctors.
Athletes being positive role models and showing kids that life ain't always impossible.
Okay, a good characteristic of a leader is that they're not afraid to speak up and say what they mean.
The characteristics of a good leader are independence, self-confidence, and wisdom.
Like being smart and like able to speak clearly and give you good advice.
You know, I think that a leader, to be an effective leader, you really have to care about, really have to love the people that you're leading. You have to want to see them do their best. I mean, that is what motivates people to follow you, is that they feel like you want to see them reach out as far as they can go and achieve as many things as they can achieve. And you see it anywhere. You see it on the basketball court, you see it in business, but the reason leaders are so effective is because they can bring out the best in the people that work for them. In our locker room, we have 3 words on the wall that really typify the type of team that we want to be. And the first word is unity. And we all have to be on the same page, and we all have to have the same goal. Sometimes when you put a team together, one guy's goal is to impress someone, one guy's goal is to lead the league in scoring, one guy's goal is to, but everybody's goal's got to be the same thing. If you want to win a championship, that has got to be your goal. If that means you have to sit on the end of the bench and cheer every game, that's what you have to do. And you have to be the best cheerleader we have. The second thing is preparation. In order to have any type of success at all, you have to be mentally and physically ready to do the job. And if you're not going to have success. I mean, confidence comes from being ready. When you go into a test and you know you haven't studied, you feel pretty bad about your chances, and you're just hoping that you might select A, B, C, or D, the right one. And that's not the way we want to go out and play basketball. We want to go out and play basketball knowing that we study for the test. We're ready to take this thing and bring on your best questions, because I understand the material. And that's the kind of attitude we want to walk out. So preparation is one of our key words. And respect is another key word. You have to understand that each guy on the team is giving their most, giving their best effort, and you have to support those guys. Everybody that you look at has a weakness. I don't care whether it's the best leader in the world or the 12th guy on the bench. They have some kind of weakness. But because you're on the same team, you have to root for that person. And you have to have a respect for them and the fact that they're out there giving it their all. And as that player, you have to respect the other guys enough to work on your weakness and try to get better and excel. So respect is a two-way street. It's not just respect for people who can't do, but it's also respecting for people that you work with and work for, to respect them enough to give what you have and give everything. And so those are 3 key words for us: unity, preparation, and respect. And those are the words we try to live by in this locker room. I tell you what, there are days being the leader that you don't want to show up for work, and there are days when you feel like you've failed everybody miserably. And that's part of being a leader, though. You know, the ups and the downs, and dealing with that, and you know, just continuing to come out there and take that responsibility is part of being a leader. Because you know, it's just like a lot of people have a lot of dreams, but when you get there, it's not always what you thought it was going to be. And I think being a leader is the same way. You think, oh man, I'm going to have this power, and I can tell people to do this, and I can tell people to do that. But with that becomes a great responsibility, and you have to be willing to accept that responsibility. I mean, you have to show up for work every day. I mean, the rest of the guys might be able to take a day off here or there, but you can't take a day off. And you have to take the responsibility when things don't go right. When our team doesn't win, they don't blame our 12th man who was cheerleading. They blame me, who was leading the team. So, you know, it's a responsibility that you have to be willing to accept. You accept the criticism, you accept the responsibility, but there's a lot of great things that go along with it. But that's all leadership. And when you ask for it, understand what all it entails.
Drugs are mostly everywhere now. Like, you can find it.
In school?
In school. When you go out, there's people trying to sell it, trying to buy some. Gangs are usually everywhere where I live. You know, you can't go down the street, you see somebody.
At least in my situation, like, I know, like with marijuana or whatever, people aren't like, oh, you have to do this, you know, they're like, fine if you don't, but it's just like, it's around so much that like people are tempted, and so many people will do it sometimes.
Sometimes seeing them do it, like drugs or drinking or smoking or something like that, just seeing them do it might like push you a little bit more to do it or make you want to do it more.
Commercials like Marlboro or something, they encourage people to go and smoke their cigarettes because they want to make money and people think it's cool, so they start doing it.
Courage is like how brave you are. Like, somebody who doesn't like another race probably don't have that much courage. I mean, you gotta have courage to like somebody.
Well, to me, courage is being able to be different, having the guts to do something that nobody else has done before.
The situation that I used courage in was one time I went out with my friends, and it was late at night, and they decided to get drunk and smoke weed, and I had to make a decision either to stay there with them and do what they were doing, or just try to find a way back home.
And what did you do?
Went back home.
The situation where I had to rely on courage was knowing that, like, it was like a lot of my friends were cheating on a test. It was easy to cheat on a test, but not cheating, like, you know, knowing that they would all probably get better grades because they were cheating, but I was going to do what was right and see what I got anyway.
I think with temptation, it's probably one of the hardest things that we have to deal with, because obviously something wouldn't be tempting if it wasn't very, very attractive to you. It might not be attractive to somebody else, but it's attractive to you, and somehow you have to say no. And you know, there's so many incidents I think in my life where I've been faced with different things and I didn't know how to respond to them. For example, when I was a kid, I was maybe 10 years old, and I was in elementary school or middle school or something, and I remember I went to a 7-Eleven and stole some candy, and it just seemed like all my friends were doing it. They'd take candy and they'd sell it in school, and I got caught taking the candy from the store. It was probably one of the most embarrassing moments of my life, and Mom and Dad didn't appreciate that very much. So that put a big scare into me. But I think that, you know, when you're faced with temptations, you have to have enough courage to say no. And I think the courage comes from faith. It comes from your foundation. You can't, you know, say no if you don't really even know what you believe. You know, if you don't know where you come from, it's hard to say no, because you just say, well, maybe I'll try this. And if I don't like it, I won't go that way. And if I do like it, I will go that way. Well, guess what? Your drugs, there must be something about drugs, because a whole lot of people get caught up in it. I mean, and I can't think of any situation that's ever been good where somebody was hooked on drugs. You know, and I mean, it's so obvious. You can look right at some of the examples and say, well, my life is pretty much going to be ruined within 2 to 3 years after I start doing this. And and it's not a hard thing to see that it's bad, but how do you think so many people get caught up in it? I mean, it's an attractive thing to people, and if you start doing it, then you might like it. What makes you think you're any different than the millions of people who've already tried it and got hooked on it? So it takes courage, and it takes a foundation. It takes faith to really be able to say no when you're at a party and everybody else is doing something. For you to have to get up and leave the situation and look like the goofball. Take some courage. You have to really feel strongly about what you're doing, about who you are, to say, hey, I don't belong in this situation. I don't belong here. I don't need to be here. And if these people don't like it, then that's going to be tough. A lot of kids will look at someone like Dennis Rodman, and there's one thing, you can say anything you want about Dennis, but the one thing that you have to admire is the fact that he can get up and say, hey, if you guys don't like it, then that's going to be tough. This is the way I am. And if you don't like me, then that's tough. And I think that you have to have that kind of courage and the conviction in what you do. Hopefully you're doing all the things that are right, and you're going in the right direction. And if you feel strongly enough in your heart, and you know you don't belong in the situation, you know you shouldn't be doing what you're doing, then you have enough courage to get up and say no. And that's how it is in my life. I feel strongly enough about my wife that if I'm in a different situation on the road, if I'm around different women, I'm not going to be tempted with those women because I refuse to let myself be put in any situations that would be compromising. And that is something that I understand myself. I'm a man, I'm attracted to a beautiful woman just like the next guy. But I feel strongly enough about my own wife that is something that I can't even allow to get even close to me. I can't even allow myself to get in a position where I have to make a decision. I say, hey, I made my decision already. It was a long time ago, and I feel great about it. I love it, and I'm not gonna go back on that decision. And so I have a conviction. I have faith in who I am and in what I believe. And so that helps me stay away from those decisions, so those type of situations. And I think if any kid finds himself in those situations, they have to say, hey, do I really know who I am? Do I know what I believe? And do I belong here? If I don't, I need to be out of here, regardless of what these people think about me. And in the end, I guarantee you they'll respect you more for it. They may not like it at the time. They may make fun of you somewhat, but in their own hearts, they'll look at you and they'll say, I really envy that person because he's strong enough to say no.
Well,
What makes you
I balance so many things. I dance and I play sports, and that takes up a whole lot of time and energy.
Well, balancing is it's important though, 'cause it makes things run more smoothly, and like putting off a big project for school until the last 2 days, it makes your life really hectic. It's I have to do this. I can't do anything else.
I have a best friend, and she's always with her schoolwork. She's always procrastinating. She puts it off till the last minute. She'd rather hang out with all of her friends, and she ended up flunking this year.
I'm not a military type person, I can't just go with rules and stuff. So every now and then I have to break it up and do what comes up.
It's easier to balance things as a teen because we don't have all the bills or the responsibility of having kids and a job that we have to keep track of the schedule and everything. And if we lose that job, have something else after that.
How do they lose the balance in
I
their
guess
life?
maybe if they start getting obsessed with money or something, they want to work all the time and they forget about their family. So they lose the balance between work and their family.
Don't put the money making first. You can always make the money, but just don't put it first before everything else.
In my lifestyle, especially, I face a lot of life balance challenges. I have to know what my priorities are, and I have to know where to spend my energies. Fortunately enough, I got some great training at the Naval Academy, and I was quite overwhelmed with more things to do than I knew how to do them, and I had to learn how to set priorities. I had to learn how to decide what was important and what I was going to take the heat for when I didn't get it accomplished. So it was great training because now there's so many things going on. I mean, there's interviews to do, there's basketball games we played, there's my wife one time, my children one time, other people who have great charities, they want my time. and I have to balance these things and understand, where my life is going and who I am and what's important. If God placed me here and made me 7 feet tall, gave me 250 pounds to throw around on the basketball court, then obviously he wants me to be a good basketball player. So that's a priority to me. I want to go out and be the best player I can be, and that's important. So if other things have to suffer, if I can't play as much golf because I want to be a good basketball player, then I have to kind of cut some of that stuff off, or even sometimes that might even infringe upon some things I might want to do as a family, and my wife understands that, and I have a job to do, and I do it, but they know that overall they have priority. So it's an interesting thing, because I get a lot of people come to me and they say, "Oh, David, we'd like you to appear here, and we'd like you to talk here, we'd like you to do this or do that," and they might be great things to do. I mean, they may be great charities and great reasons to go and talk, but I can't do them because in 20 years, when my kids are 25 and 23, then who can I blame when they're not the children that they should have been? No one. So I mean, right now is a special time in their lives, and if that means that I can't go and talk to the Boy Scouts, or if I can't go and talk to the Heart Association, I can't do it. And I have to learn how to say no sometimes. So it is a tough balance. You have to learn how to balance your life and balance the things that are the most important. Focus on those things and know where you're going. Know exactly what is before you. And right now, I know the keys in my life are to be the best husband I can be, and the best father that I can be, and the best basketball player that I can be.
I have faith in God because, He's an important part of my life, because, it's like, well, it's hard to explain. But I also have faith in my family because I know that they will always be there for me.
I have faith in myself and in God. I try to go to church when I can, but I'm usually at work.
Yeah. Or are there times when your faith wavers?
Sometimes my faith wavers.
How come? What causes that to happen?
Sometimes something would happen and I'll be like, but I thought God is real. I thought He's supposed to help you in things and in problems.
Okay. All right. So Lisa says sometimes her faith wavers when bad things happen. Have any of the rest of you experienced that or not?
Yes.
Okay. How does that happen, Tara?
I guess maybe if someone in your family dies or something,
Mhm.
and you're really upset about it, you're just like, you thought that God is there, that He wouldn't let anything happen. But
I have faith in God because I know that God and my church family and everything, where I go to church at, to always be there in case I need money or something to help out. They can always help me out in a little way, but it still helps to know that they're there.
I have faith in myself too, because you have to have faith in yourself if you want to get anywhere.
Faith is more like trust, and it's really hard to trust people. You can't hardly trust anybody except maybe your family and friends.
But why is it difficult sometimes, Kelly, to have faith?
It's difficult to have faith in things because things are always changing. You can't have faith in the government because we get a new president every 4 years, and so rules are going to change.
Really, the only thing you can have faith in is God. That's what it's all about, because it's like the girl said, you can't have faith in the government, for example. It's changing, and everything changes. Even I know for myself, I watch myself grow over the years, and my opinions about things change all the time. But the one thing that doesn't change is God. He's the same all the time. Even though I might not think so, I might think one day He's mad at me and the next day He's not. But to be honest with you, He doesn't change, and so that's the most comforting thing that you can have. It's like I tell people I always use my wife or my a family or my job or whatever. But example with my wife, a lot of people in my situation, they always say, why didn't you sign a prenuptial agreement? They can't understand. They say, well, it shouldn't affect the way you guys are married. But I told them, I said, you know what? I have faith that we're going to be together for the rest of our lives. Because our relationship is based on what God's given us. So if that fails, then everything that I believe in it falls apart. She might fall away from God, and that would mean more to me than her falling away from me. And so that would hurt me more than her deciding not to live with me, because I'm kind of a jerk sometimes. She may not want to live with me sometimes, but if she walks away from him, then we've lost everything we had anyway. I have self-doubts all the time. I always wonder, can I go to the next stage? Can I be better than I am today? It's, I've had a lot of success, and where do I go, and how do I go out even farther now? How do I affect my community even more than I have now? How do I do things more positive? Can I really be a good father to my children? Can I keep them from all the dangerous things out there? Can I raise them in a way that they're good children and not little brats that run around and tear everything up? It's a scary thing to when you feel like, I can't do this. It's too hard. I can't do this. And I think that's where you just say, hey, I know that if I just am faithful today, if I just trust God and do what I need to do today and be faithful, and all he says is, hey, David, don't worry about your marriage 20 years from now. Love your wife today. That's it. That's all I want you to do, okay? That's being faithful. Just love her as much as you can today. And then tomorrow, we'll worry about that, okay? But today, you do this. And it's with your children. Spend as much time and honor them as much as you can today. And tomorrow, I'll take care of them. Don't worry about it. We'll start all over tomorrow. But, in my job, that's what he says. He says, David, I know you want to be a great basketball player, but just go today. Just be the best basketball player you can. Go out there and work as hard as you can today. And then get some rest. And tomorrow we'll talk about the way you need to go tomorrow. Life isn't about putting trophies on your shelf. It's not about you being bigger or better than the next guy. It's about trusting that God's going to use you to do something really special, and you need to be ready for that. You need to work as hard as you can in school. You need to do in every area, everything that you put your hands on, you do it as well as you can, because you never know how it's going to be used. And that's what faith is about, and that's what gives you the power to do great things. Greater things than you could have ever imagined.
Each child in school, they need to get a vision. And when I say a vision, a child listening to me may not understand. Well, what is she talking about? A vision. Have some idea that you want to be successful. I don't want to live like I had to live. I don't care if you're living off $100,000 salary a year. Say, I want to do better. I want to do better than we're doing now. Because if you're not growing, you're doing something wrong.
No, I don't think David is the most successful in the sense of my 3 children, in the sense of success. It depends on your definition of success. I always stressed education. I am very proud of David. I am also very proud of my daughter, and I'm very proud of my other son. My other son graduated from Naval Academy in '93, and he's done some of the things that I never thought that he would do. So in that sense, that is my definition of success. All 3 of my children then are successful.
What's your definition of success, Fred?
Success is to feel good about what you have done and achieve it.
Materialistic things don't matter. It's just getting to do what you want to do and doing that.
Could mean just getting through an obstacle in your life or something.
Well, my mom's a success because when I was about 3 years old, she was paralyzed from the neck down. And the doctor said she'd never walk again. But now, she's walking. She's got most of her recovery back. And, she's just, every day, she's, living her day to the fullest.
You could have, $1 million, right? And, it'd be good, because you could buy a lot of stuff with it. But if you have no friends or nothing, nobody to share it with, then it's no big deal.
A lot of kids grow up in situations where they don't necessarily have advantages or they have maybe families that are dysfunctional or something that you would think that might preclude their opportunity to have success. But to be honest with you, I don't care what situation you're in. I don't care what has happened to you in the past. You can have success. And it really is based on your definition of success. Because if you buy into the world's definition of success, then you'll never achieve it. the thing about the way, if you watch TV, you watch the things that people kind of put on success, they always raise the standard. I mean, if you're making $1 million, they wonder why you're not making $2 million. If you're driving a big car, they wonder why you're not driving a bigger car. And it just changes constantly. And if you get caught in that game, that's why they call it a rat race, because it's like running around in a little circle and you never get anywhere. If you want to do something different with your life and you want to really start to move towards, being more successful or more responsible or more whatever it is, I think that you have to kind of sit down and understand what it takes to get there first, and then just change. So many people, when I talk to people all the time, and they always say oh man, I want to do this or I want to do that, and always my question boils down to, well, then why don't you just do it? Why don't you just stop giving me excuses why you can't do it and do it, and commit yourself to it? Because 9 times out of 10, 99 times out of 100, they don't do it because they don't want to do it. It's like we sit in the locker room and the coach comes in and says, do you all want to win a championship? And everybody goes, yes. Well, if we all really did, then we'd win. The problem is that most of us really don't want to, because we haven't done the things that make you successful. We haven't been in the gym lifting weights. We haven't given the time that it takes off the court to do it. We haven't been focused enough, and all we have to do is make a decision that this is the most important thing right now, and let's get it done. And I think for a student, if they decide, hey, it is important to change. It's so important that I'm going to change my schedule, and I'm going to start to, study a little bit more, or I'm going to start to do a little bit more of this or do a little bit more of that, and I'm going to write it down. I'm going to make sure that I stick to the schedule until it becomes habit. That's when you change. So that, but the problem is, you can talk about something all you want to, but if the things in your life don't reflect it, you don't really want it. You really don't. It's important for kids to think and to read and to have a good education, because it teaches you how to deal with some of the things that come up in life. I was a math major, and being a math major, you learn how to logically think out problems and a problem-solving process. I think that so many times, good things are disguised. And you don't understand what's happening while you do it. Like going to school is a great example. You go to school, and a lot of times you sit in a class and you think, why do I need to know this stupid stuff? But you're learning so much more than just what's on the board. You're learning about discipline. You're learning about having a schedule and being faithful and being able to turn your papers in on time and responsibility. You're learning about a lot of things that you're going to have to face when you get out into the business world. You're going to have to turn your papers in on time when you get a job. You're going to have to show up to the meetings. You're going to have to learn how to think out certain processes. There are so many things that you're learning while you're in school that you're going to have to use when you get out into the real world, that aren't necessarily on the board or in the textbook, but they're in the way that you approach school. They're in your habits. I would just say, a person who struggles, I have so much more respect for, and I think I would hire them first if they accomplish something than somebody who does it and it's really easy for them, and sometimes they don't appreciate it. And if you find somebody who struggles, they're the people that are lauded right now. I mean, you look at the Olympics, you see little Carrie Scruggs running down the way with her sore ankle. She was struggling, and she shouldn't have been out there. But when she did it, everybody gave her so much praise because she had courage. She had courage. She went when she knew she wasn't supposed to be there, or she didn't have the ability to do it. She went and did it. And she fought so much harder than the rest of those girls who were healthy that, then when it was over, they lifted her up on the shoulders and they were all excited. And it's the same way with you. I mean, when you struggle a little bit and you reach through and you get tougher and you get right through it, then people will respect you so much more for that. you know, you don't really love that child if you're not giving him the best opportunity to be successful and to grow up and be a strong man or a woman of their own right. Question is, how do you deal with hate? You know, you don't give it back, you know, because it's like a monster. You know, it's like feeding a monster. It just gets bigger and bigger and bigger. Always my question boils down to, well, then why don't you just do it? You know, why don't you just stop giving me excuses why you can't do it and do it?
David, I would like to know what inspired you to start playing basketball.
Hi, Jessica. I was inspired to play basketball because I grew so quickly in high school. And all of a sudden, my senior year in high school, I was 6'7". I grew like 3 inches a year from the time I was in the 9th grade. I was 5'9", then about 6'1", then about 6'4" in 11th grade, and 6'7" my senior year. And I remember the day that I walked into the guidance counselor's office and he said, "Hey, son, do you play basketball?" And it was all over from then. I had to go play basketball as I was 6'7". So that really is what started me, but then I just loved the competition, and that's what kept me going.
David, I'd like to know what kind of challenges you had when you were growing up as a kid.
Hi, Justin. I had a lot of different challenges growing up. I think one of my biggest challenges, though, was fitting in. I always felt like I didn't fit in because I was always in kind of advanced classes. And so I was always around the white kids, and I didn't feel comfortable always going to black parties or white parties, and I just felt like I was kind of in between. So socially, I think for me was probably the biggest adjustment really growing up, trying to find a place that I fit in, where, you know, most kids don't really like smart kids. And so I had to kind of find a place to fit in and find my own friends and do different things. So I think that was probably the hardest adjustment for me.
Hey, David! I wanted to know, if you weren't as famous as you are now, where do you think you would be?
Hi, Ronette. If I wasn't as famous as I am today, what would I be doing? My wife and I laugh about this all the time because she wishes I wasn't. I think it's harder on her than it is on me. But I think that I would probably be a scientist or a math teacher or something like that, because math and science have always been something that I've been very interested in, and it's been a big part of my life. So I think I would probably lean towards one of those two things. I like to teach, and math would be a natural subject.
Do you experience racism on the court?
Jamel, that's a perceptive question, because, you know, racism is very real in our society. We see it everywhere. But I don't so much see it on the court. Most of the people that play basketball, the guys that play, are great guys, and they play because they love basketball. But I think in my business, I see it a lot. You know, I look in the front office, and I see very few black people that work as executives on any of the teams, very few blacks that are coaches of the teams or general managers. And that's kind of upsetting to me, considering when I look on the court, there's 80% of the guys are black, and then, you know, 90%, 99% of the people running the organizations are white. So, you know, it's kind of a balance that I'd like to see changed. I'd like to see some young blacks come up and start to get into the ownership and get into the management positions, and then I think it'll be a better balance.
Hey, David!
David, I want to know what you do to have fun.
Well, Kelly, you're the Renaissance woman. And since, you know, you should know there's lots of other things. I'm kind of a little like you in that sense. I like to do everything. I like playing music. Music is probably one of my best outlets. I like to sit and play on my piano, and I kind of sing a little bit to myself, but I don't let anybody else hear me sing. And that's one of my favorite things, and I like to just sit around and watch my little boys romp around. Those are my two favorite pastimes.
Okay, David, I'd like to know, while you were going to school, did you get good grades, or you just kind of laid back?
Hi, Kendra. I hate to admit it, but I was kind of laid back. And And fortunately, I had the parents that I had because my grades were good, but they were like average good. And my parents knew I could do a lot better than that. And so I always got in trouble whenever I brought home any grades that they knew I shouldn't have been getting. If I got a C, I got in trouble. So, you know, they made me. They really pushed me and made me go harder than I did because I was too laid back. And going to the Naval Academy, they picked me up and made me go. And I think that those were being my parents and the Naval Academy were the two best things that ever happened to me as far as education. They made me work.
David, do you feel that the basketball rim should be higher and narrower?
All right, Brett, why are you trying to punish me by making it higher and narrower? I'm getting older. I can't jump as high as I used to jump. No, I don't think the basketball rim should be higher and narrower. I think the season should be shorter. That's about all I think should be shorter. But I think it's perfect the way it is. It's a neat game the way it is. And yeah, the people are getting a little bit larger, but also it's getting more physical. And so it all kind of balances out, I think.